Hello again. This is my Magsorc build. It is a Magicka range DPS, which given the current STAM meta in ESO, having a range DPS, particularly in a trial, is very useful. This guy's going to hit about 70k-ish. And there are Magsorc builds out there that hit higher, much higher. But I will also tell you that I have shortened and condensed down the rotation so that it's not as much of a headache as running some of the rotations, which are up to 12 buttons. So we're going to do a quick section where I go through the skills and the gear and the champion points, and then I will go deeper into it and explain it more in depth after that. So right out the gate, for gear you have the Maelstrom's Perfected Inferno Staff. Don't have Perfected, that's fine. Maelstrom Inferno Staff is good. We're going to run Kinra on the weapon and jewels and fuse with spell damage enchant. And then the Kinra staff is going to be flame damage with an Inferno Staff for that extra damage against single targets. And then you're going to run Precise. Perfected Inferno Staff, weapon damage enchant with infused. Zons, you could also run Niraneth, or in some cases some people like to run Lambrus. I prefer Zons just because of that single target damage and the buff it's going to be getting in the new update. And then we have the old and the classic Robe of Mother's Sorrow. There may not be a better magic crit set in the game right now, although there might be a craftable coming out with the new update, and if it works better I will certainly be doing an update video. And that is your gear. Now let's have a look at your skills. Your back bar, you're going to run Unstable Wall of Fire, Degeneration, Volatile Familiar, Channeled Acceleration, and Twilight Tormentor. This is a dual pet Sorc build. Again, this is not meta, this is just a good solid range DPS that will get you up over 70k. You have to run Volatile Tormentor, or Volatile Familiar and Twilight Tormentor on both bars to keep them alive, and your main bar is going to have Daedric Play, Force Pulse, and Crystal Frag. This is sitting here just for the Fighter Skill passive, so if you want to swap out Dawnbreaker, that's perfectly fine. The main ulti we're going to be using is Greater Storm Atronach. For champion points, you are looking at, again, Wrathful Strikes. Again, after the update, it's going to, Backstabber's getting a nerf, so Wrathful Strikes is going to hit harder, and right now, because of the way this build works, it's hitting a little bit harder anyway. You want Biting Aura, Master at Arms, Deadly Aim. Here, you just want the left side of the tree because you're not doing any stamina-based attacks. All of this is going to be pure stam, or pure mag. I'm sorry. Now, one thing that should be noted, and your red tree and green tree do what as you will with those. I prefer Force Pulse because it's just an easier bit of the rotation. But if you want to, and you have leveled up Psijic, you can run Elemental Weapon, and you'll get just as high, maybe even a little bit higher DPS with Elemental Weapon than you will Force Pulse. I just find Force Pulse to be an easier thing to do in the rotation. A lot of builds out there recommend Necrotic Orb and the morph of it. To damage, I have found that even running it in its base unmorph form, it is a magic drain, and we're already limited in slots as is on this build. Your other option, since you're running a dual pet Sorc, is instead of Robe of Mother's Sorrow, you could run Necropentance, which is an older meta but still really good Mother Sorrow Necropentance, or you can swap it out for Burning Spellweave and you're still going to hit pretty high. Burning Spellweave I think is a hair behind Mother's Sorrow, but not by much. Also, if you're doing something like a flame build, it would be really neat to run Burning Spell Weave on that. But that's all personal preference. But in my case, for max damage, Robe of Mother's Sorrow with Kenra. Alright, we're now going to go a little bit deeper into it. One other thing, so starting with food, Ghastly Eyeball for max magic and magic recovery. As with all my other builds, the way we get around, well, what if you're too squishy? We're going to throw on Gaze of Sithis, and then we are going to throw on Slime Craw, and congratulations, you now have 24k health with 18k spell and 15k physical resistance with over a 1700 health recovery, and you don't lose sustain. That sustain does matter, and it's a lot easier to throw on Sithis and Slime Craw than run a meal. And I mean, unless you're in a situation where you're having to block, Gaze of Sithis is the way to go in general. So, in my opinion. Now, with this build, you want the weapon damage enchant, because what it's going to do is it's going to, every time you hit your light attack on your back bar rotation, it is going to increase your weapon and spell damage, which really does matter because it gives you a pretty big boost overall. Kenra, like a lot of the meta sets now, is a stacking set, so when you bar swap to it, you want to get it up to 5 stacks to get Major Berserk. Now, depending on how fast you get the rotation down, you might lose your Kenra stacks. If you do, that's okay. It will happen sometimes. If you lose your stacks, just rebuild them. Don't panic. Don't start throwing out heavy attacks. You'll be fine. This build does struggle a little bit with sustain, so you might see the necessity to throw in 1 or 2 heavy attacks here or there, which is why we run the Spell Pot potions, Essence of Spell Power. Also, there is no passive that grants us Major Prophecy on this build because it's a dual pet Sorc, so you need to run at least potions that give you Major Prophecy and Restore Magicka. Also, there's not a skill on this build that gives you Major Sorcery, so you need to run spell pots that give you that. So you can run a spell pot that doesn't give you Major Intellect, but you really want to run spell power pots. Tri-Crown Restos will help, but you're not going to get that Major Prophecy, which you need. Now, as far as all of this is going to be max magic, 5 light, 2 medium. And I'll explain why the 5 light and 2 medium real quick. So, if we look at the light armor, so 5 light, you get that nice extra physical and spell pin, and you get an extra crit rating, which is really nice. Also, it's a light armor build, so there you go. But with medium armor, you'll notice I only have 2 unlocked. My apologies. So you want dexterity, which will increase your crit damage done by 2% for each piece of heavy armor. That's going to give us 4% extra crit damage. And then weapon and spell damage too will also go up by 4% for each piece of light armor. So we're going to wear 2 pieces of light armor. Not light armor, but medium armor. The rest of this, if you have the points to get it, get it. If you don't need to worry about it. Heavy armor, completely useless. Even if you're running Gaze of Sithis, I wouldn't worry about it at all. Now, Sigil Order. I run Channeled Acceleration on this build instead of Barbed Trap, because 36 seconds without having to reproc is huge. It really is big. 36 seconds without having to reproc lets you get to your rotation several times without having to worry about it. Now, your rotation on this is going to be a little bit different. Because with the meta right now being Stam, having a ranged magic DPS is really useful. For example, if you're in Vet Ethereal Archive, at the end you have a boss that comes up that spawns shades. Well, you can't move because if you move, you die. So you have to turn and burn down those shades. If you're a stamina user and you go jumping over there to those shades, you're going to get yourself and probably 2 or 3 other group members dead. So this is how you solve that, as a Magicka ranged DPS. You can also do a ranged build with a bow, but those are even more finicky. Now, you have Unstable Wall of Fire, Degeneration, Summon Volatile Familiar, and Channel Acceleration. This you will proc at the beginning of a fight, but you will not hit it again. It is there because it gives you passive damage, a lot of passive damage. This is for your Minor Force for the extra 10% crit. So your rotation is 1, 2, 3, and then summon Greater Storm Atronach with a light attack before this, light attack before this, light attack before this, light attack before this. This does have a 1.3 second cast time, so you are going to be frozen casting this for a second. That's okay, because you're also going to have some magic restored after that. Then it's going to be a bar swap, and then Daedric Prey, Force Pulse, and anytime you see Crystal Frag proc, you hit it. It is adding a lot of DPS, a lot of damage. Now this has a 6-second timer. These all have 10 seconds, give or take. Yeah, Volatile Familiar is 10 seconds. So you want to keep this up as much as possible. So you may be up here in the middle and have to bar swap back, pop this, and then bar swap back and finish the rotation. That's perfectly fine. If you let this run out because you reproc this, hit this, then go back over here and hit this. This is a little bit more of a dynamic rotation, but it is a simplified version of a lot of the high-end Magsorc DPS builds out there. Because for the most part, your rotation is going to be 1, 2, 3, bar swap, 1, 2, keep hitting that, proc this whenever it comes up, bar swap back, 1, 2, 3, bar swap, hit this, keep hitting this, proc this whenever it comes up, and then on your 3rd or 4th rotation, depending on the speed of your rotation, your light attack, several factors play into it, you are going to reproc Channeled Acceleration. Now, as I already said, with Kenra, you could lose the stacks. That's okay. Let's go into the champion points. As I already stated, this is going to be more powerful than Backstabber. Also, with range, you may not always be able to get behind your target, so this is constant DPS over time. You're going to run Deadly Aim because Crystal Frag, Daedric Curse are both single target attacks, and so are all your light attacks and heavy attacks if you have to proc those. Degeneration is also a single target attack, so you're getting buffs with that. This is buffing Force Shock, Crystal Frag. Again, it's buffing our spammable and our proccing ability that does a lot of single target damage. And this is buffing Wall of Elements and your pet and Force Shock, because Force Shock can tend to hit other things at the same time. With this, you just need the left side of this tree. That's it. Weapons Expert I had because I was running an experiment. You don't need it. You just need the left side of this small tree. Fitness, run here whatever you want. I run Siphoning Spells, Rejuvenation, Fortified, and Boundless Vitality. Green Tree is whatever you want it to be. Green Tree doesn't matter too much. One thing to note of the skills is Mage's Guild. Again, you don't have a slot to put Inner Light or Camouflage Hunter on, so you're relying on potions for that. Degeneration, it's a nice dot, but Thaumaturge does not buff you as much. So there is some argument as to whether or not Thaumaturge buffs everything else. Thaumaturge does do a lot of buffing, particularly with Degeneration, but it should be noted that Master at Arms, Biting Aura, and Deadly Aim will get you higher DPS than Thaumaturge. So, with that being said, that is the overall build, and we are going to go in now and show you the rotation. This thing also has fairly good AoE damage. It's not going to be as strong as on a Templar or on the Nightblade that I built, but it does have pretty strong AoE damage. So, without further ado, we are going to begin. So, pop our potion, pop this, and then we're going to drop our ulti, light attack, 1, 2, 3, bar swap, Daedric play, and I know Wall of Elements has run out, but that Crystal Frag proc is more important. And we're going to have to bar swap to recast. Next rotation, we are going to hit the Channeled Acceleration. We're going to lose a second or two there. That's fine. And for the record, I do not have this rotation mastered, so you will probably hit higher once you get really good at the rotation. And you see I double proc there. And here's another thing, and here's a good point down to point this out. If you lose track of your rotation, just go back and start it over. I don't care what anyone says. In combat, you will lose track of your rotation at some point. If you get lost and you feel like you're getting out of control, just go back and restart it. And here we're going to need a heavy attack to restore some of that. Pop our ulti again and go back here. I did let the other timers run out to reproc that. That's okay. Recast that. Bar swap. Crystal Frag. We'll catch Crystal Frag on the next pull. There it is. Awesome. Like that. Crystal Frag is back up. Let's throw in a heavy attack. Let's get some of that mag back. Summon that. Alright, we're going to have to bar swap again here in a minute. Now we're going to recast Channeled Acceleration. One of the reasons that you run as many magic abilities as you can is that you want to proc Crystal Frag as much as possible. Now with the update, that's going to change where it can proc off any ability, not just mag. this goes off, we're going to go all the way down the line and recast channeled acceleration. We're just going to go ahead, go down the line, and recast everything. Go ahead, run down the line, recast channeled acceleration. Want that to run out, we're going to hit crystal frag. And from this point forward, we are just, yep, and there you go, 70k. I have hit higher with it, but notice I screwed up that rotation several times, and I still hit 70k. So again, this is a nice range DPS option, and for the record, if you screw up a rotation, it's okay. Just go back in and start your rotation from the beginning, even if you're in the middle of a fight, in the middle of a test, whatever. It's better to go back from the beginning and restart than try to reproc every skill individually, and then you end up even more screwed up because you start scrambling to try and recover every skill. Just go ahead and restart your rotation from the beginning. It will save you time. And okay, maybe you might be able to recover by scrambling and reprocking each skill individually, but you're now going to be doing that for the rest of the fight. And that gets to be very tedious. It also leads to you possibly screwing up the rotation entirely, and it's also very hard to keep that up. So when all else fails, if you feel like you're about to lose control of the rotation, that you're losing control, stop and restart. That is a perfectly acceptable thing to do, and if anyone tells you otherwise, then they are apparently a whole lot better at rotations than some of us, because we're human. But anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this build video, and see y'all around. Thank you for watching. Later.